It's gone short to Wilshere. He's not been picked up at all. Wilshere! Yes! He scores at the Emirates, and let's hope it's the first of many. 5-0, and we haven't even played it out.
I know you moved on to someone new. Whole life is beautiful. You were the light for me to find my truth. I just want to say thank you.
Leaving to find my soul. Told her I had to go. And I know it ain't pretty when our hearts get broke. Too young to feel this old. Watching us both turn cold. Oh, I know it.
Go on, and he's got 3 for company. Adam Lallana's back heel. Here's Jack Wilshere! I might just be better than the first one! Smashed home by Wilshere!
Jack, what a fantastic turnaround. How do you feel after that?
Oh, I mean, it's by far my best night as an Arsenal player since I've been here for 10 years, and it's great. I mean, the fans were brilliant. We couldn't have asked for more from them, and I mean, it gives us something to hold on to for the next leg.
Did you always believe you were capable of doing that? Because Barca played so well in the first half.
Yeah, I mean, we knew what they're like. We know how they play, and there's a spell for 20 minutes we couldn't get the ball off them. It was like chasing shadows, but we got it back and we pressed them well in the second half, and we got 2 good goals.
Only. What do we think of Tottenham? Shit! What do we think of shit? Thank you!
When you're trying to move on, yeah. I hope someday we'll sit down together and laugh with each other about these days. All our troubles will lay to rest, and we wish we could come back to these days. Oh, I know. These days.
Hello and welcome to the Clock and Talk. Thank you for listening. Thank you for downloading each and every week. I'm joined by a couple of buddies. How are you, Tony?
Yeah, I'm good, thanks. Yourself?
Yeah, good, mate. Good. And Schwinn, how are you, mate?
Doing well. It took you only 3 or 4 tries to get this right, but I'm glad we are rolling now.
If somebody was recording, but anyway. Listen, a bit of a downer to start the show, boys, because you wouldn't have heard the intro that's just come in due to editing and whatnot, but the intro of Jack Wilshere was what we've put up there today. And, boys, it was a sad day. I'll start with you, Tony.
Oh, I didn't think you'd start with me, considering I never really speak about Jack. It's a very weird one because I was honestly gutted. I said it's the most I've ever been, I don't want to say hurt because it makes me sound like I was in tears, which I'm not crying, you are. But it's the most pissed off, I guess, I've ever been about a player leaving. Like, even when I think when other players left, it was in their hands. Like when Fabregas left, when Nasri left, don't get me wrong, we lost great players, Van Persie. But it was sort of all of their own doing. It was out of our control to an extent. Whereas this, it was completely our decision pretty much. So it was, I was again, I don't want to say upset, but I was upset when the news broke. I kind of knew it was coming, and I think I angled towards that last week on the podcast, saying that the feeling was that Emery didn't have him in his plans, but you still never want to hear it / see it, really.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it was something that, I dragged on for such a long time. I think I said to you, I would have loved to see him, say his farewell at our last home game, but it wasn't to be.
Well, yeah, I mean, there's so many things about the way it happened that I'm pissed off about, and I'm sure we'll get into them later, and then obviously I know there's a few questions on it as well. But that is one of them. I think if anyone deserved to have a proper goodbye, it was Jack. I'm not saying it should have been on Wenger levels, but there deserves some form of goodbye there. I mean, even Santi didn't really get one because of being overshadowed by Wenger, and rightly so. But between the two of them, they've got, and especially I don't know if it transcends across the multiple countries where we have listeners, and obviously you guys are from, but the relationship Jack always had with the fans in the stadium was second to none. I don't think there's ever been a player that's had so much well-wishing from the stadium. So again, to not have a goodbye was a bit of a shitter, really.
Yeah, totally agree. Schwinn, what do you got to add there, mate?
Very sad day. Not just for, not just in terms of the fact that we've lost a player who is one of the longest-serving players at the club, but also because in the fashion it was done, it almost seemed as if it wasn't supposed to be done that way. I mean, the Leno announcement obviously was triggered by what Leverkusen said on Twitter. I don't think we were planning on announcing Leno, and Tony did bring that to my attention that they announced, and then it seemed like we hurriedly followed suit. So you have this ecstasy going through you that, yes, we're finally making moves, and you have all this positivity. Twitter is sparkling at this moment, and then out of nowhere, we read about Jack, and suddenly, the winds are knocked out of everyone's sails. I mean, everyone was expecting it, as Tony said, but when it happens, and as it did with Arsene, it was a shock, and it took me at least a day, I would say, to really come around to that idea, because I really did think that the player and the club would reach a consensus. There were positive reports coming out that Jack is willing to take the financial aspect that Arsenal is offering him. And I thought there would be a place for him in this team, especially with his character, especially with, unnecessarily getting rid of players where we need depth. And midfield is definitely one of those places. I'm not sure what the conversation was with Emery, because he has been holding talks with Arsenal players who are not at the World Club and who are not on holiday. So he has been meeting with people at Colney, apparently. And the conversation with Jack was not the longest one from what I've heard and read. So it's disappointing. Jack is one of those people that, as fans, you use as a surrogate. You think of yourself as Jack in the locker room or in the team dynamic, because he's relatable. He's the one player on the team, arguably, who grew up an Arsenal fan and wanted to achieve that all Arsenal fans want to achieve, play for the club and succeed with the club. And it's just unfortunate that we've lost our voice, in a way, at the club. And I'll miss him. I'll definitely miss him. And he's given us some special memories. And God knows no one can take those away from us.
Yeah, well said, mate. I totally agree. Tony, I'd imagine, there was a meeting between Emery and Jack, and he was just told he wasn't wanted.
Yeah, so obviously Jack agreed the financials with Husfami, I assume, who's the contract guy. Obviously, I think people like Ivan Gazidis would have had a say in the numbers, but the financials and everything was all agreed. But as Schwinn just said, I believe, again, from what I've heard, it could be complete nonsense, that the meeting was very quick, and Emery said, basically, look, I have no control over the contract. If you want to sign it, but you're not featuring in my first team, essentially. A lot of people have taken it as he said, you're not an automatic starter. But again, from what I've heard, it was deeper than that. It wasn't you have to fight for your place in the team. It was more, don't really matter how much fight, you don't feature in my plans. And that's where it kind of, I don't know how true that is, but if I run with that story, I always said, and I think I said it at the beginning of last season when Jack wasn't really in our plans, if anyone at that club can fight for their way to get back into the side, it's him. And I hate the word passion in football, but just for how much the effort he gives when he's on the pitch, even on a bad day, he's going to try. He's well versed in the art of the Premier League. Like, I know when we spoke about it on here, he got heavily criticised against Southampton when he essentially started a fight that got a Southampton player sent off. And I said at the time, for me, that's genius. That's knowing the Premier League inside out. And I don't think any of our other players currently, not off the top of my head, have that Premier League not experience because they played there, but that nous of how the Premier League works and how far you can push it. So I remember we spoke about at the time, I think Jack's only ever been sent off twice, and one was for 2 bookings and the other one was for a bit of a lunging tackle. And people always go, oh, he starts fight, he's a hothead, but he never does it to the detriment of him or the team. So I think it was very silly if he has been completely ruled out, like you're not getting in the team, you're our 6th, 7th choice midfielder. I think in that sense it's a very stupid loss, because I know I've just mentioned a lot of things about passion and effort, but we also have to remember that on his day, he is a very, very good footballer.
Mm-hmm. Favourite Jack moment?
I think that everyone's going to say the Barcelona game, which he was special. I don't think we've probably seen a midfield performance like that since from anyone. But I remember 2 games, and neither of them will particularly be well remembered. We beat Swansea in an FA Cup replay 1-0 at home, and he scored. We drew 2-2 at Swansea, and this was a time we could not beat Swansea. I think it was Ian Michu scored 2 against us at home. FA Cup third round, I think we were 1-0 down, went 2-1 up, then they equalised in the last minute. And in the replay, we won 1-0, and we was terrible. They hit the bar. But he was so good. It was actually, like, people in the ground were like, this kid's too good to play for us. The level between him and everyone else that day, it was the year before we won the FA Cup, so it didn't lead to anything. But I just remember watching that thinking, I actually felt sorry for him having to play with the players or the performances the other players put in that day. So there was that, and then the other one when I think it was arguably up there with his best game at the club. We drew 2-2 with Man City. I think it was Alexis's first league goal, which Jack got the assist for, and then Jack scored the other goal. It was Danny Welbeck's debut, and like if anyone can watch the 90 minutes of that game, it was maybe not technically the greatest Premier League performance you're going to see, but in terms of drive and pace and intensity, it was the perfect Premier League midfield performance pretty much. So them two, I mean, like, obviously, as I said, Barcelona's the one that comes to head immediately, but them 2 are games I just remember thinking, wow, this kid is special.
Mm-hmm. Schwinn, what's your favourite Jack moment? Right?
So many. Meeting him was special. I met Jack about 13 years ago from now, so that was a while ago, and it was a young Jack Wilshere. I'll get into that at some point with you boys. It wasn't anything special, but meeting him was brief and something I'll never forget. The Norwich goal, of course, comes to mind. That was perhaps one of the best Arsenal goals I've seen ever. And the Barcelona game, I think that one is a bit bittersweet for me, because the expectation from that day skyrocketed, not just for us fans, but in the media and everywhere. It seemed like you could hear Jack Wilshere was going to be the next big superstar, and I mean, we believed it, till the longest time, and maybe that put some unnecessary pressure on him in one way or the other, and maybe that's why a lot of fans think that it's fine for him to leave, because he never reached that bar. Maybe that wasn't his bar, and maybe we've been unfair to him by comparing him with that standard he set that one night. But there's just so many Jack moments, winning the FA Cup, and he's at the parade and just asks all the Arsenal fans what they think of Tottenham. It's the small things that matter when you're a fan and you're trying to interact with a footballer that you almost pray to and idolize. And you can make 100 correct passes, but sometimes being off the field and saying some of the things he has, I think no one can ever question his love for the club. He's one of us. He was a regular boy who went to live his dream. And as an amateur footballer myself, I can tell you that probably is a feeling that cannot be compared to anything else. So there's a lot of moments that come to mind, but just for being himself, I think we can cherish him, and I'm sure that wherever he goes, we'll keep a keen eye on him.
Well, just to butt in quickly, like the video he released was obviously, I think the choice of song, and it's obviously the same song we used in the intro, the timing of the lyrics was perfect, and it kind of made it a bit emotional. But for me, the thing that that hit me hardest was he posted a picture of him, and he must have been no more than 10 years old at Highbury in the Arsenal kit, and he put just a kid with a dream. And this is why I find Jack so relatable, and Schwinn touched on it earlier, and we spoke about it on WhatsApp during the week, that for me, Jack's from the outskirts of London, I'm from central London, we're similar ages, but it's just, he is me but living my dream. Like, I grew up watching everything Arsenal, going mad about Arsenal, was nowhere near ever good enough as a footballer. So he lived my dream, and I kind of lived my dream through Jack, because he was the only one that I could pin that to, because we live in very, very similar circumstances, or did at a young age. And again, I said to Schwinn the other day, and I don't know, I'm not being ignorant, but I don't know if maybe that's why some fans don't take to him as much as I do, because I place that attachment on him because we had a similar upbringing, and I know exactly how I would play if I played for Arsenal, and it would be like Jack. Whereas if people were from wherever, it's not London, if you could be an Arsenal fan from Manchester or from Sydney or wherever, I don't know if you place that same attachment. And I think sometimes I see on Twitter a lot of fans say, "Oh, why do Arsenal fans give Jack a bit of an easy ride?" And there is at times he did get an easy ride, but as I said, I think it's because a lot of the local fans, so the young ones are the ones sort of my age that see themselves in Jack, and the older ones are just happy to see someone come through the club, because they're from a generation where transfers weren't such a big thing, and everyone came through the club. And now, or until last week, Jack was really the only one. They wanted it so much for him because he was the last of a generation, and then my generation wanted it for Jack because we saw ourselves in him. And as I said, I don't know. Again, I'm not trying to be ignorant, but I don't know if people from wherever, India, America, Australia, get that same attachment. And I think that's why we see a lot of people question him. And it's maybe right to question him, but I think that's also why you see a lot of people defend him as well.
Yeah, I get it. The fans overseas and whatnot, they don't have that. You know, if you've got a homegrown hero and you've watched him come through the ranks and come up through a club, and then there you are at the Emirates or Highbury or wherever you were, watching this kid come through. So it's got to be special for you guys over there in London and over in the UK as well.
Look, I mean, it's possible for anyone to place that attachment on it. I'm just saying I don't know. Like, and to be fair, when I spoke to Schwinn about it, he pretty much said the same thing as me. So maybe it is possible, but I just know for me, as I said, we're similar ages, from quite similar, probably 20 miles apart. And as I said, as a kid, if I could have plotted my perfect life up until 20 years old, it would have been Jack Wilshere's life.
Mm-hmm.
So I think said you're living your dreams through someone else, and usually people say that about when fathers are making their son do a sport they don't really want to do so they can live their dreams through them. So it's a bit unusual to say it in these circumstances, but that is literally what it was for me. As I said, Jack was living my dream, and it was someone that was very similar to me in all aspects but talent.
Yeah. No, I totally get it. Look, for me it was, I'm not going to say any specific moment. Like, obviously Barcelona, as you mentioned, Tony, was a great moment. Like, and that game was a class above anyone else. But on another note, like, okay, he was I don't want to say injury prone or whatnot, but he did have a few injuries throughout his career at Arsenal. But what I liked is he bounced back and he fought for his position back in the team. He never gave up, and he never gave up loving Arsenal. He never gave up loving the club that he wanted to play for, or the club that, he had a lot of attachment to. So, many times he could have walked away. When he went on loan at Bournemouth, we probably thought that was going to be the end of Jack Wilshere at Arsenal. But last season he came back, and look, he wasn't setting the world on fire, but there was some pretty good games that he played. So for me it was just, like you guys touched on other moments, but to see a player out of the game at times, throughout his career and whatnot, I think he bounced back really well and always fought for his position at the club and always had his heart on his sleeve. So, righto, boys. There's another one that we've got to touch on, a new signing. Tony, goalkeeper, Leno.
Yeah, we've been linked with him for a long time, and it was sort of seemed like a matter of time. We was waiting for it to happen more than it sort of felt like we knew it was going to happen. We were just waiting for the announcement. From what I've seen of him, which is limited, and there'll be people listening to this that know a hell of a lot more about him than me and have seen a lot more of him. But from what I have seen, he's capable of the magnificent, the excellent. I've seen him make some outrageous saves. But also, again, I don't know if it's concentration. I've seen him make some ridiculous mistakes. I don't know. Obviously, you're never going to know what brought them on. But if you can get him to be at that top class level consistently, we have a hell of a keeper. At Arsenal, you tend to be busy as a keeper, but again, that's going on the Wenger years. We don't know how tight we're going to be at the back under Emery's system. But it looks like a good signing on paper because he's still young. I mean, I think it's 25, 26 for a keeper. That's no age. That's usually when you're starting. For his age, he's got a hell of a lot of experience. Sometimes it's tough to handle moves, so that'll be interesting to see. Some people just don't take to new countries. Also, the physicality of the Premier League. I think especially as a keeper, that's sink or swim. You can either handle it or you can't. I mean, I'm sure we will remember when De Gea came. He was just getting beat up left, right, and centre. And there was at times he wanted to go back, and Ferguson and the rest of the United staff forced him through it. And now, I know he's made a few mistakes recently, but for me, he's still the best keeper in the world. So I think that'll be a big, big test of Leno. And if he can come through that, it will force him to concentrate more, which is probably his biggest weakness at the moment. And we could have a hell of a keeper on our hands. Interestingly, and it's something that I don't expect Arsenal to do, but with De Gea, United literally used to set up training sessions and say, for this half hour, crosses are going to come into the box. You've got to come and get them, and it's the players' jobs to smash you, basically. And that was how they had to get him used to the league. And they said, look, these are your friends. So if this is what these guys are doing to you, it's going to be a lot worse in the games. And that was how they had to get him used to the league. And I don't know if Arsenal, if that is something Leno struggles with, I don't know if that's the type of coaching methods that Arsenal would run with.
Mm-hmm. Time will definitely tell. I have to go to our German correspondent, though, Tony. We, the Germans. So Tony Schwinn should know a fair bit about him.
I've seen a bit of him. I do follow the German league quite closely, and Leverkusen have been decent in the last couple of years. My only qualm with him is his height. Now, I personally prefer tall goalkeepers because they tend to provide a bigger frame and cover more of the goal, especially from a standstill point. You know, you can jump larger distances, and of course, because of your wingspan, you might be able to pick a ball that's making its way into the top corner. Leno is very good with his feet. Arguably, in the price range that we were looking at, I think he was probably the best option we had. And as spoken about before on this podcast, Emery does like to play the ball out of the back, and he likes a goalkeeper who can play the ball. I remember Tony mentioning that would be one of the main reasons that Czech will not retain his spot a couple of weeks ago. And, of course, he's been proven right in that case. My only, trouble with Leno will be that when the ball is given away and he is finding himself in a situation where, the attack is starting 10, 15, 20 yards away from him, how does he respond to that? Because it's not been the best from what I've seen. I think he has a long way to go, and I think this signing shouts promise. I don't think we should, think that this is a finished product by any means. I think there's a lot of work that needs to be done. The physicality is a huge point that Tony mentioned. And we have some Germans in the team that will help him settle in London. And we have some, we have Mislintat, who's, of course, a big, big fan, apparently. So I think the environment is there for him to grow and to succeed. I think it's just about finding that right balance and how he's able to do that. I would like to see some goalkeeper work being done. There was an announcement, I think a week ago almost, that Arsenal have announced their backroom staff. And Javi Garcia, who was Emery's assistant at PSG, was quite in the balance. We didn't know whether he was going to come to Arsenal or stay at PSG. He has now come to Arsenal, and a lot of credit for Alfonso Areola's growth has been given to Javi Garcia. So I like that he will have someone who can come and take up that role and, who can coach him through these things. Just quick shout out to Jens Lehmann, who departed this club on a bit of a sour note, and maybe we can talk about that at some point. But I'm excited about the signing. I think it's a signing that we needed to make, considering it was Emery who we appointed, and we're moving the right direction, so you won't find too many complaints from me yet.
Yeah, I'm just going to wrap it up very quickly because I like the guy. I reckon he's an exceptional goalkeeper. And more importantly, boys, I like his name. It's a very easy name to pronounce, Leno. Is that right?
I'd say his first name.
No, we'll pass on that one. I'm just going to nickname him Leno. So, look, I've got nothing, boys. I haven't seen much of him, to be honest. I don't watch much German league, so anything I've got to say probably wouldn't make much difference on what you boys touched on anyway. Okay, just quickly though, Schwinn, is he as good as Alisson from Roma?
No comparison. And that's the bracket that you would want to separate yourself from. The likes of Ederson, Alisson, Oblak, De Gea. He's not there. But as Tony mentioned, his age is soft enough for him to reach there. And I think, apart from De Gea, the goalkeepers I mentioned, they're all ball-playing goalkeepers. And that's the trajectory that Leno should follow. But his shot stopping, I think, can do some work. He needs to compensate for his height. And that's a good way to move forward from here. But as mentioned, I don't think we should jump too far ahead with the signing because it's a signing of promise and not of product right away.
See, I disagree with you slightly there in that I like shorter goalkeepers because I think they're more agile, they're more flexible, and they're usually quicker. And if you look at the moment, I was trying to think as you were saying it, of outstandingly tall keepers that are in the top bracket, and the only one I could think of was Courtois. I don't know if I'm missing someone blindingly obvious, but Ederson, Alisson, De Gea, Neuer, all the ones you just mentioned, they're not what you would say are tall keepers.
Well, I'm not necessarily talking 6'6". Of course, we can get into specifics. I'm thinking more in terms of wingspan. It's not just vertical height. Some goalkeepers tend to have very long arms, even if they're not the tallest. Leno is not that. His frame will not be big enough. He's a short man, not short, but he's an average height man, and his arms aren't.
What is he, 6'2"?
That's what I would imagine. 6'1", 6'2".
Yeah, I'd say that's probably. I know what you mean. To be honest, my worry would more be build than height and wingspan, as I said, with the physicality, because I don't think that if you're 6'2", and say De Gea is 6'2", just to put an example, the wingspan isn't going to be a whole lot of difference. It may be an inch or two, which at times could be crucial, but I don't think it's something that you notice in the mainstream. I mean, obviously, we had a lot of times people say, "I wish Ospina was taller," but then we also said that he had overchecked that how quick he was off his line, and he probably had better reactions. So I think you sort of win some and you lose some.
Absolutely. I mean, it's a grey area, right? It's not just black or white.
I think it's personal preference. I mean, I can see where you're coming from, and I wouldn't disagree with anything you said, but it's just my personal preference, and especially for Arsenal, when you assume we're going to be defending quite high up, because whether we choose to or not, we tend to get dragged into that. I'd rather the quicker keeper, the more agile keeper, than. And usually, when you're shorter, you're going to be better with the ball at your feet as well. It's why someone like Vieira was so rare to see a 6'5" midfielder with feet like that. And it's similar with keepers, that you think of the ones that you'd say are good footballers. They tend to be shorter. So I think it is just more a case of what you like. I wouldn't disagree. I wouldn't say you're wrong on anything you said. Just my personal preference is someone. I'm not saying I want a 5'5" keeper, but I prefer a slightly shorter keeper than someone, say, like a 6'6" or above. I mean, I know a lot of people rate Fraser Forster, and he is huge, but he's so immobile. I think he's useless. So again, it is just on personal preference.
Absolutely.
Schwinn,
I gotta agree with that.
Just quickly though, Schwinn, can the bloke kick a ball? Because we all know Tony likes a bloke who can kick a ball. He
can find a target. He can find a moving target a mile from him. But it comes in spurts. Look, when you're a goalkeeper who plays the ball a lot, it's because you're being, there's a high press going on, and that means you don't have a lot of time on the ball. So you try and find a target in the limited time you have. And I have seen him kick a ball like Jordan Pickford right into the stands, into row Z. That will happen, but more often than not, 7 times out of 10, he'll find his man. But, I look at our options up top. I'm not too convinced that we have players who can bring the ball down. We don't have the likes of Giroud. I know Alba is tall, but how often have we seen win him flick-ons so far? So, of course, there's a lot of football that needs to be played and analyzed, and we need to be better on those second balls, those flick-ons. But he can find a moving man in the other half, that's for sure.
Okay, well, that's what I like. Now, just quickly, boys, Tony, Ospina or Czech, who goes?
For me, Ospina. I think if you were to compare the two, Leno to one of them, he's more like Ospina, but hopefully an upgrade, or he is an upgrade. So keeping Czech gives you something a bit different if needed. Also more experience. You're not really going to get a decent fee for either of them. So for me, I would keep, if we had the complete choice and they were both happy to sit on the bench, I would keep Chet and get rid of Ospina.
Okay, Schwinn, you agree?
In ditto, yes.
Yep. Okay. Yeah, I'll probably agree, I suppose. Even though I think I said Spina was had a better season. Anyway,
just quickly, boys, do you think that one of the reasons that Jens was let go is probably because Czech might take up that role a year from now?
Well, we brought in a goalkeeping coach and we kept on Sal Bilbo, and it was originally thought that he was gone. So maybe that they do feel in the short term there will be someone else coming into that role. Sal Bilbo, not Bilbo, sorry.
I got nothing, Schwinn, maybe.
It just seemed the way Jens left was kind of bitter. The tweet made it pretty clear that he wasn't happy about leaving. And
the issue is with Lehmann is he wasn't a goalkeeping coach. I actually don't know why he was there. As much as I respect him and he was an invincible and blah blah blah, I actually don't know what he done, because he wasn't the goalkeeping coach, and I think that was the issue a lot of people had. So I mean, I wasn't surprised. I expected him to become one of the goalkeeping coaches. But when they announced that the other blokes, because they didn't announce Jens leaving, they just announced who all the coaches were. And when I saw that it was the guy that brought in from PSG and Sal Bibo, I wasn't at all surprised that Jens was going, because, as I said, I don't know, no disrespect to him, but how is he going to coach a centre midfielder? Or not? Even if he does, how are you going to respect that? And I think even in his tweet, which, as you said, seemed a bit bitter, he mentioned, I guess the spirit of the Invincibles isn't wanted around here. He didn't mention any excellent coaching qualities he had. So I don't know what he done.
Can't live on spirit.
No, as I said, I don't know what he done. So I wasn't really that surprised. Obviously, things go on behind closed doors, and maybe he done a lot. But looking from the outside, he was not a goalkeeping coach. He was just a regular coach. He's not going to be able to coach the players because he's a keeper. So then if he's there just for mentality, and Emery thinks that he can bring that in, and with his assistant he's brought in, I mean, I don't know if either of you have seen much from him, but he parades up and down the touchline and screams at anyone that looks at him. So you're going to get mentality from there.
So speaking of not doing a whole lot, were any of you surprised that we held on to Steve Bold?
I was just about to ask the same question. That one shocked me. I thought that was weird. But then Steve Bold, I don't know, he didn't seem to do a lot in the Wenger era. Like, maybe we're going to see a different Steve Bold. I don't know.
Well, he's in a reduced role from what he was before. And look, when he had the under-23s and he looked like a very promising coach, and then he got promoted to assistant, obviously had to stop being coach of the under-23s, and then, as we all know, seemingly done nothing. Now by putting him as essentially the third coach in command, so it'll be Emery, Garcia and then Bold, it gets him back to his coaching, which, as I said, he was reportedly very good at. So it's taken him out of the limelight to an extent, but letting him get back to a job that he was previously seen very good at. I was surprised they kept him, but I don't know if I want to say see the thinking. I understand where it's coming from.
Are you lads just excited to see that we may have a manager and an assistant manager that are going to scream up and down the sideline instead of just sitting on the chair doing fuck all?
I always think people go over the top about it, but it is nice to see, and it gives you something to get behind. If they're shouting, then you sort of feel right within yourself to shout, even though you're going to anyway. I think the issue is with Wenger, say we was losing, people used to go, and obviously I sit right next to the dugout, so you just hear it all the time. People go, oh, look at him sitting there doing nothing and we're losing, he should be out on the touchline. But on the opposite side of the coin, if we're losing 3-0 and being shit and someone's running up and down the technical area shouting, there'll be people go, oh, well, you should just get the tactics right and you don't need to shout. There's a positive and negative to anything. I will like to see it just because it's different, but I do think people go over the top about how much it adds. I think people seem to think that it gives you an extra 5%, which it really doesn't.
When I was seeing Conte, I think it was his first game at Chelsea, and when he ran over and hugged the fans after they scored, I think they scored, the game went to the death, and they might have scored in the 90th minute or something. It was the 80th minute. But anyway, he ran over to the fans and gave them a big hug and whatnot. And I thought, geez, just to get something out of our manager would be good. and Glopp, he's the same, like that,
Yeah, but I mean, I agree with you, but you're comparing basically last-minute winners to an average 90-minute game. Of course, when you scored, but I was as happy with Wenger doing his little, I don't want to say knee slide, but his little double fist. For me, that was as good as someone diving into the crowd head first. So I don't think you can compare these moments on last-minute winners. You've got to compare them to your how the 90 minutes go. Yeah. And Emery won't be jumping in the crowd anyway.
Oh, no. He doesn't seem the type of bloke to be doing that like a Conte or Klopp, so...
Yeah, I will quickly say I also don't want my manager to be running down the touchline, celebrating with the fans, and then a month after that holding my club hostage. He can go fuck himself if he wants to do that.
Mate, you're in America where they go, it's soccer time!
Yeah, I was about to do it's podcast time today before we started recording. But I thought I'd be booted before we even started, so I avoided that.
Fucking Yanks, they love it, eh? Okay, boys, let's get into some World Cup stuff very quickly because we've got a couple of live callers on hold. Okay, good, the bad, the ugly. Tony, good that's come out of the games. Our last podcast was Germany were just about to play, I think.
Yeah, good for me, the midfield performance of both Rakitic and Modric yesterday, or it was just yesterday from now, but obviously whenever you're listening. But against Argentina, I thought they were both excellent. Argentina were poor and pretty much played without a midfield, but them two were really good. And I'm not a big fan of Rakitic. I'm a huge Modric fan, and I'm pretty sure I've mentioned it on here before, but I don't really rate Rakitic. I think there's a lot of players that are better out there, and he probably gets more credit than he's due because he plays for Barcelona. Having said that, yesterday he was exceptional. And I don't know if he did get man in the match. He should have. But had he got that goal, I think people wouldn't really been talking about him. But they are now because he did get that goal. And in a way, I was glad he did because that performance deserved mentioning.
Did anybody mention Croatia as a dark horse?
Nope.
I think we put them to get through the group.
Did we? Yeah, okay.
I think I did anyway. I hope so.
I did too.
No, I don't think I did. I think I changed to Nigeria.
You did. Well, you selected Nigeria, then you weren't sure a week after whether it was still Nigeria. You asked me, I said, no, it is Nigeria. And they're like, okay, then keep it Nigeria.
I'm going back to delete that podcast.
You can't delete our WhatsApp chats, can
What
you?
a fucking bonehead move that was. Anyway.
Speaking of Nigeria real quick, it will be on the bench.
Yep.
Yeah, I saw that when we started recording.
Yeah, so make of that what you will.
Schwinn, you're good?
A certain Spaniard called Isco. Fuck me, boys. The way the man moves with the ball is...
Oh, here we go. Hang on. Well, last week you wrote him off because somebody asked if he was better than Ozil.
Yeah, he's not better than Ozil. They're different players. It's like comparing Thiago and Xhaka. I think that's what Vish did in that question. So there's no point really going on about that. But
I just had to throw it out there.
Yeah, one can still appreciate beauty even if it's not owned by them. And I think there's players who come every decade or every generation that just catch your eye. And I think Isco is one of those players. I mean, he's very Santi-esque in certain ways, and in a lot of ways he's the opposite of Santi. But the way he slaloms around the field and against Iran, who were very, very good on the day, I thought Isco had a brilliant game despite only the Spaniards winning 1-0. It's just a pleasure to watch him. He's easy on the eye. He's always available for his teammates, and it's just a pleasure to watch. So for me, he was those 90 minutes that I watched him were spectacular.
See, this goes on it was. Obviously, I know Vish is going to come on in a minute, I think, but it goes back to how I answered his question last week. To watch him, I agree, he's a beautiful player to watch. And I tweeted some stupid stuff during the game about him embarrassing people and not thinking about their family that they have to go to and say, "Daddy, why did that man make you look stupid on TV?" But my issue with Isco is he does that and it looks spectacular. And I'm tweeting about him. That game would have been exactly the same if he didn't play. He made no impact on the game.
I think
that's my problem with him.
That's probably more of a testament to Iran. I was actually torn.
No, I mean, that's my general point about Isco, though. I think he's like that so often, where you look at him and you watch him and it's pure entertainment and you think, wow, look at the way he done that. And then you look at it at the end of the game and you think, didn't do anything.
It's hard to argue. It's hard to argue, especially when, when he's also playing for his club team. He's always surrounded by such stars who tend to take up the spotlight for a goal or for an assist or whatever you have. It would be fascinating to watch him for a team where he's the star man or one of the 2-3 star men. So I mean, it's hard to argue with what you're saying, but I think sometimes not everyone can have an exceptional game. You just need some people to do their job, and when your job is just to be a beautiful footballer and you can live up to that mark, I think that's a good day spent at the office.
Yeah, I know. I was more relating it to my answer last week that I prefer Ozil over him. And Vish even said when I put out them tweets, Vish was like, but you'd still prefer Ozil over him. And that's my exact reason. As I said, he was beautiful. He done some stuff that is unbelievable. But as I said, you come out of the game and not every time, but most of the time I watch him, I come out of the game thinking the game would have gone exactly the same if he wasn't on the pitch, except some grown men would have been less embarrassed at some point.
Now that we've said all this, I think next game he's going to go out there and score a hat-trick. So wait and watch.
I hope he does. As I said, I love watching him. I'm not criticising him. As I said, I just think I look at that game and I think, I think he should have started for Vasquez. But I look at that and I think if Asensio's in that game, he doesn't look as good but has more impact. And that's how every time I see Isco play, I think exactly that. I think, he looked brilliant and I really enjoyed that. That was fun to watch. But play is usually Asensio, because at Real Madrid as well. And I just think, well, if Asensio played, he would have threatened the other team more in terms of goals and assists and had more impact on the game.
Okay, $51 for Isco to score a hat-trick in the next game. Might jump on that. It's Morocco. Okay, my good boys, quickly. This has really come back to bite me, this fucking Russian team. They were good. They were good again against Egypt. And you got a team of Egypt who did they play their first game? And they
Uruguay.
Uruguay took 80-something, 6 minutes or something to get a goal past them. Uruguay haven't been that great, though. But Russia to come out 3-1, I thought that was really good. And I'll just give a quick shout-out, boys, while I'm going to Japan to beat Colombia. I think that's the first time Japan has beat a team of that calibre. So I think that was, I've got to give them a bit of a shout out as well.
First Asian team to ever beat a South American team at the World Cup.
Is that what it was it? Yeah, first. Okay, yeah. So, yeah, that was good. That was really good. Fucking I also had money on Colombia, so that fucked my mouldy. But anyway.
I told you not to. I did tell you the day before, don't do it.
Yeah, I know. I can't help myself, mate. I'm like, I've got to put my hand in the cookie jar regardless. Tony, you got a bad?
I'm torn between putting Caballero's mistake into bad or ugly. I don't know what he was doing, and it takes a lot away from what was a ridiculous finish. But I'll put that in bad because that's the question you asked, and I'll try and think of an ugly.
Okay. Schwinn?
Argentina in general. I mean, I'm sure all of us got to watch that game yesterday.
Oh, that's shocking.
And just more of the same. They just picked up where they left off after the first game, which was very pedestrian. A lot of people put that down to Iceland's organization and of course, Messi not being able to score from that penalty. But yesterday was so bad. They don't, I look at their bench and they had the likes of Di Maria, Higuain, Dybala, Ever Banega, Christian Pavon, some really good players, some A-listers in there. And they're starting all these players, Meza and Acuna. I don't understand what Sampaoli is thinking, and I think it's safe to say that their chances of making it through are very slim at this point. It is just, it's just painful to watch Argentina, and it's painful to watch Messi. I mean, walking out of the tunnel before the game kicks off, he's holding his head in his hands, he's scratching his face. You can see the focus is not there. You can see the belief is not there, and that is evident on the pitch once the whistle is blown too. I have no idea what Sampaoli's done to this team. He's absolutely butchered them. And he's also absolutely butchered his arms by getting those long sleeve tattoos. I don't know what he was thinking there either.
I've got a couple of bads, but I'm going to touch on that one later. Look, I'm just going to say Bert Van, whatever his fucking name is, Bert Van Flog for the Socceroos manager. Now, he's come in, I think they paid him about $4 million to manage 3 games, and then he disappears. Look, he done really great against France, Australia, set us up very well tactically. Even against Denmark, I thought we played really well. However, you 1-1 up, 1-1, you got 20 minutes to go, 15 minutes to go. You got Tim Cahill sitting on the bench. Now, I don't know if Bert doesn't know who Tim Cahill is, or we as Australians have so much expectations on Tim Cahill. So whether it's a fitness thing or whether he just thinks Tim Cahill's not up to scratch. But for me personally, I probably would go throw Timmy on and see if he can snag you that goal. And you look at the Socceroos, the last 10 minutes, 20 minutes of that game, balls were coming in from the side, crossing through, perfect for Tim Cahill. So for me, that has to be the bad. Tony, you got an ugly?
Yeah, I mean, we haven't mentioned England's glorious win yet, so I'll just pick that up quickly. Football's definitely coming home, lads. It really pissed me off, and it's maybe because I hate him anyway, but Dele Alli being injured from about the 15th minute and carrying on and not putting your hand... Look, you've got to think of the country at that point. He couldn't perform at his best. He was unfit to, so at that point you've got to put your hand up and say, Gaffer, I've got to come off. I am not playing, I can't do this for the team because I'm not physically in the right shape. I spoke to a Tottenham fan about this the day after, and he's like, nah, that's got to be the manager's decision. And I said, well, at the absolute least, Dele Alli's got to say to the manager, look, I can't do the best for the team because I am not in 100% the right condition. If the manager then chooses to not take you off, you're an absolute idiot. I know a lot of people disagree with me on this because they say, it's the World Cup, you've got to stay on and play. But for me, not if it's to the detriment of your team. And yes, I hate Dele Alli, but I'd say the same about any player. If you're not fit for purpose and the manager staff has not picked up on it because you don't look, you can still walk and you can still somewhat run, you've got to say to them, look, I don't feel all right. But so for me, that's the ugly, just because I think it's a very selfish decision. As I said, I know not a lot of people agree with me, but I hate Dele Alli anyway, so fuck him.
You're going to win your group, talking about England?
I mean, I would imagine it would all come down to the Belgian game. Look, we don't know. That other group now is so fucked, the Colombia group, that you don't know if it's... And we play before them. So you don't know if it's going to be an advantage to come first or second anyway. So I wouldn't be surprised. If both teams have got 6 points, I wouldn't be surprised if both teams play weakened teams in that game. Because, as I said, at the moment, there's no definite advantage from coming first or second. You may as well, and even regardless of who comes first or second, there's not a superpower in that group where we would be playing. So I think you're probably better off resting your players and giving them a rest for whoever you play, rather than going all out to get the top spot.
Just look, and I know you're going to be a little bit biased, but then again, you're pretty switched on all that stuff. So you watched England, and me and you both said, or you said it on the podcast last week. And sorry, Schwinn, I'll go to you in a minute with your ugly, but just because Tony brought up England now, set pieces, that's what they're going to. They scored was it 2 goals? Yeah, Harry Kane got 2 goals. One was a tap in.
Yeah, but they were both essentially tap-ins from...
Tap-ins, pretty much. Looking at England going forward, you're thinking, oh, shit, even if we get through to the group, I'm not sure who you'd come up against. Somebody in group...
Well, the Colombia-Japan group, if we win, it'd be the second. If we come second, it'd be the winner.
Yeah, so what do you think going forward? Where's your goals going to come from?
Look, I mean, we've got an exceptional finisher in Harry Kane. Look, he plays for Tottenham. As much as I hate him, I'd be an absolute idiot to admit he's not a good player. So if anything falls in and around the box, I can see us scoring. My issue, and I said exactly the same as last week, is how we're going to get the ball into the box. I think we're going to... I said it last week, and I was pretty much essentially shown to be right on that instance, that we're going to play a lot of kick and run football because we've got quicker players towards the head of the pitch. It doesn't really service Kane well, so to get him any service is going to come from wide, which is why I said I thought Trippier would be very important. And obviously I don't know who took the first corner. It would have been him or Ashley Young for Kane's first goal, but he took the corner for the second goal. And Kane's either going to be living from crosses or set pieces. I know I just said both these goals are tap-ins, but you've got to give him huge credit for just being so alive. To get the second ball both times, to be in space in the area where it's so crowded, to find space is an art. It's not. That doesn't happen by accident.
He can be the man. Like he can always find the ball. No doubt about that.
So, I think the issue is we're not really playing to suit Kane at all. That doesn't mean he won't score because, as I said, he's an exceptional striker. But I didn't particularly. It was entertaining. I didn't particularly like the way we played because once we caught them with pace early on and third man runs. Jesse Lingard made some excellent third man runs. Once they sort of figured out how to stop that by defending deep and defending with maybe their defensive midfielders sitting a little bit deeper to stop a third man run, we looked absolutely clueless. I think from maybe after their goal, I don't think we created a chance that wasn't from a set piece. I don't think there was a time where I thought, we're going to score here and the keeper's made a good save or whatever. We were just, as soon as they realised, if we sit a bit deep, they're struggling here, that was pretty much what happened.
Mm-hmm. Japan, Senegal, Colombia. I think Poland won't make it. Colombia probably won't over, so Japan, actually any of them can make that group, can't they?
And, that group, because the two least favourites on paper both won. So everyone before had Colombia, I don't mean us, I just mean in general, had Poland and Colombia going through.
That's right, yeah.
And they're the two teams that lost, so one of them's going out.
How'd you like our Japan, Senegal? Senegal, good, weren't they?
Yeah, I think Senegal, they pose power and pace on the break and usually and not as organised. Japan will come with a lot of energy but not much threat usually. Poland looked awful. They're not great at the back, but they've got Lewandowski, which always gives them a chance. Colombia, you would say on paper, are the best side, and to be honest, even with 10 men, they had 10 men for over 90 minutes, and I would say they probably, there was at periods they were the much better side, and take away the penalty, which was scored, obviously the moment it went down to 10 men, it was essentially 1-1 over 90 minutes with 10 men.
That killed them. that red card 2-3 minutes into it.
2-3 minutes in, but they weren't outplayed. They didn't park the bus. They went and carried on, played normally with a man disadvantage. So I would say they're probably still the ones I would least want to play in the next round out of that group. But as I said, when them and Poland play each other, one of them's going to lose, or both of them are only going to get a point, which means one of them's out.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if that's next or if that's the last game.
Yeah,
I'm not sure.
Okay, Schwinn, what's your ugly, mate?
The Germans. Absolutely, without a doubt. I'm surprised we've gone all this way and not spoken about...
we the Germans.
We the Germans, like we the Germans. It was
so it's not... Yeah, well, that's the issue you have there, because it's not, my side, it's the Germans.
Yeah, he's changed it, hasn't he? He's changed it up. It's not, my side, the Germans are really bad. It's them Germans.
I never said them, so I was thinking of doing that, but it seems like you guys have caught on, so I'm not going to try and jump ship now. But that performance was shocking. I mean, right off the bat, credit to Mexico. I thought they were very good, and they had good organization, blah blah blah. But at the end of the day.
Blah, blah, blah.
This is great podcasting content, isn't it? Blah, blah, blah. But when you think about the quality that Germans have on paper and, the options we have when it comes to the bench and moving things around, even with a set number of players that you fielded out, none of it was visible. The awareness. I mean, I miss someone like a Schweinsteiger. I thought we suffered a lot just the same way we do at Arsenal. I thought Sami Khedira and Toni Kroos were almost mimicking Granit Xhaka and Aaron Ramsey to an extent. That midfield of Kroos, Khedira, and Ozil was pedestrian. I think Toni Kroos and Sami Khedira gave the ball away a lot. I thought Mesut Ozil was okay, which is not what you expect from him in German colours. He's usually much better while playing for...
It was a big game. He was playing against Mexico, and what happens to big Ozil in big games? He goes missing.
Oh, don't give me any of that, because you know that's not true. It's a myth. It's a complete myth, and I don't want to get into Mesut Ozil because this is not about him. This is about the team playing. And where was Thomas Muller? Where was Julian Draxler? Where was Timo Werner? We had no...
I thought Draxler wasn't too bad.
We lost 1-0 to Mexico. How can you say he was not too bad? I thought everyone was bad.
No, but out of a bad team, I thought Draxler was probably one of your best. And I know it's hard to say one of your best in a losing team, but he was actually trying something. As
one of Germany's best, not your best. He's not German.
I don't know. I don't know if I agree with that.
Striker? Timo Werner. Who's he play for? Red Bull.
Red Bull, yeah. But see, that's the thing, though, right? He's got so much pace, and not once did we hit him behind their back line. I thought Thomas Muller and Mesut Ozil should have switched positions after a while when things weren't working, because Muller gives you more of that work rate. And if you have Kimmich behind you on the right wing, then Mesut Ozil will still be able to exercise a lot of freedom on the ball and off the ball. I thought Mexico did very well in pressing Mats Hummels and not Boateng, because Hummels can play the ball out with both feet, and he can not only play long balls over the top, but he can play those balls that break the lines on the ground too, which are very, very good for Germany, because they don't like to play the ball up top. And Boateng, to his credit, found some good passes, but the attack fizzled out as soon as Mexico would drop back. I thought we didn't have a clear plan. It stank of Arsenal. I mean, I cannot tell you how much I thought I was watching Arsenal play.
Don't put my team in your fucking team.
What's that?
I said, don't put my team in your fucking team.
I'm telling you, that's how I felt.
You got your team to your fucking team and let me have my fucking team, okay?
I don't know if you should be saying that as an Australia fan. But it was sad. I think coming into the tournament, all of us thought that Germany are going to be strong contenders. I remember for me and Tony, they were probably going to be winners. I don't remember what Tez's prediction was for that. But
I think I said them too.
Yes, I mean, if things keep going, it's possible that the finalists from the last World Cup are going to be nowhere near the knockout stages. Both Argentina and Germany have fizzled out. Whether it's complacency, whether it's tactical stupidity. I don't know what it is. But if we don't pull up our socks, I don't think we're going to be able to go quite far ahead in this tournament. And that's going to be a huge shock.
Just quickly, I'm sure it was Tony on the Twitter, Herrera from Mexico, mate. You were talking him up like no tomorrow. Was that you?
I thought he had an excellent game, but the only tweet I made about him was that a pundit got it wrong and said he played really well for Peru. Not Peru. Yeah, Peru. Oh. But he was outstanding.
Maybe it was in the WhatsApp chat.
It was. I said in WhatsApp. But he had I don't know a huge amount about him, but he was exceptional. I thought a lot of Mexico players played well. I think, obviously, Lozano's getting the credit, who I ironically didn't think was great. But he got the goal. But, yeah, I thought Herrera had an excellent game, and whoever it was played in centre midfield with him. I can't remember off the top of my head. Also, I thought had quite a good game. Yeah, that's it, Guardado. I thought he had a good game, but I thought Herrera was on a different... And you've got to look at... When you look at these things, you've got to look at who he's playing against as well. To boss any midfield with Toni Kroos in it, forget the other players, it's an achievement.
It is. Who's Lozano? Who's he play for?
PSV.
He plays for PSV. So we were linked with him in January, and then we've been linked with him again after his goal, but I'd imagine that was because he scored a high-profile goal. But yeah, Herving Lozano, but Chucky, nicknamed Chucky. Plays for PSV. And so we were linked with him when Sanchez were going because they're kind of in a similar mould.
Right.
He was your pick for a young player to watch, Ted.
He was too. Lozano. I thought I heard that name before.
Yeah, from your own mouth.
So obviously for our audience, he based his pick on someone he'd watched loads of every week for PSV.
No, I think I was reading about him. That's what come to it. Yeah, Lozano. That's why I said him. Yeah, okay. Anyway, that's one for me, boys. So he was brilliant, wasn't he, lads? Lozano. Yeah, no, what I was going to say was... next group stage. So you got Sweden coming up, Swin. You've still got South Korea to get past. You'll be safe, I think. You get past Sweden, you'll be right.
I mean, I would imagine so, but I would also like to finish the group up top. You know, if Mexico can drop points over the next two games, and Germany can pick up both wins, then that would be ideal. But
you got Brazil or Serbia above you.
That's a different group.
Sorry. So
who you'd have next?
If you get second in Group F, you'll play either Brazil or Serbia. They'll be battling.
No, Switzerland are playing Serbia later, and that's a huge game in that group.
Yeah,
that group's still so open. I think Brazil massively needed that winner. I know they got two, but they massively needed that because had they not got that, Serbia would have only needed a draw against them, which would have meant, even if they lost today, which would have meant parking the bus to a level that probably we haven't seen so far at this tournament. So that Coutinho goal, and obviously I know Neymar one followed it, was probably the biggest goal of the tournament so far.
So Serbia sitting in second, Switzerland third. So obviously, if Switzerland beat
they're
Serbia,
playing each other in an hour.
Yeah, one's on 3 points, 1 point. Yeah, interesting, Schwinn.
Yeah, I mean, for me, Switzerland will probably make it through. And that's why I had Germany winning the group and then, of course, them playing Switzerland. But yes, if Germany do finish second in the group, then we play Brazil, which would be one fantastic tie. And probably the tie of the next round, right?
Yeah, absolutely, yeah.
Unless Argentina finish second, in which case they might play France, which can also be
They're gone for me. Argentina are gone for me, surely.
Well, I'm not going to count them out mathematically. It's impossible. You know, you never know. I mean, you need to win one game, right? So, of course, it's dependent on this game that's going on right now between Nigeria and Iceland to an extent. But they might just be within a shout. I know I probably shouldn't count on it just because of the way they've been playing. But that could potentially be a big tie, France versus Argentina in the next round.
Mm-hmm. No, very interesting, boys. Okay, my ugly, and it's really, I'll only do it quickly because it's only going to be for Australian listeners. Now, obviously, I spoke about it last week that Optus Sports had the rights to SBS had the rights to the World Cup and basically had the lot. They got rid of the group stages to Optus Sports, who are streaming service only. So you've got to basically have an app. You've got to watch the games on your phone, or you can stream it to a Chromecast, or you can watch it on Fetch, which is a box, or Fetch Mini, basically. So there's a couple of ways to watch it, right? Basically, Optus didn't anticipate that probably 4 million Australians were going to watch the World Cup, because if you look at the figures on the Premier League, probably about 400,000 Australians watch the Premier League, so which can handle the app. Now, when you got 4 million Australians coming in to watch the World Cup, well, it just basically crashes the app all the time. So, long story short, boys, the Optus has now turned around and said to SBS, you have to have all the games because we just can't basically stream it. However, the round 16 is it goes back to Optus, who have it. Now, round 16, SBS don't have any game. Well, I think they've got one match of the day, and then Optus will be streaming the rest of them because they hope to have their app up and running. But the problem Optus have done is they've decided to give all Australians free, because this thing's $15 a month. So that because of the debacle over here, they've decided to give it to everybody free. So if people are going to have it free and it didn't work for 4 million people, well, what's going to happen come round 16 when everybody jumps on it because now it's free and the games aren't on SBS? So it's really going to put Optus in the spotlight again. It's going to be type of make or break for them again after they've already kind of fucked the World Cup coverage over here. So
they didn't.
Yeah, it's very interesting.
Through the day.
Oh, mate, it's how you cannot go. The World Cup is the biggest game in the world. We're going to have lots of people watching this, and mate, they just didn't even think. I don't understand it. I can't understand how they never thought, oh, we're going to have heaps of Australians watching this, because people are paying $15 a month. So you know how many people are signed up. I don't understand. I really don't. So, yeah, boys, that's my ugly, the way Optus have handled the whole situation. Also, I've had a lot of mates contact me because about the Optus have also decided to give away a Fetch Mini to people who are, struggled with it all. It's another free gift from Optus. Basically, just read your terms and conditions, guys, for the free Fetch Mini, because it's actually 12 months free, and then after the 12 months, you're actually paying $20 a month unless you send it back. So don't get stuck on that one. But, yeah, it's very ugly, boys, very ugly. But anyway, lucky we've got SBS to come back and grab the broadcast and save it again. So
you can always find an American stream and enjoy soccer time.
Mate, I think lots of Australians would actually be happy to have soccer time than a black screen.
Be careful what you wish for. I'm not joking.
No, it has been it's been a complete and utter mess. Yeah.
Since we are on this topic, I was watching a game the other day. I don't remember which one it was. I think it was the England game, and I took notes on some of the things I heard. So just give me a couple of seconds while I read out some of these phrases that were said during England-Tunisia. Trying to head flick it on. Dele Alli is Harry Kane's club mate at Tottenham. One return of the favourite. England are winning 1-1. So well solved by Tunisia. I don't know what that was. Facing his own end line. That's a new term I've heard in football. There was a history lesson given on the origin of the Mexican wave during that game, and from memory, that game wasn't that boring. It was pretty end to end. So I don't know where the commentators found time for that. And the last one: how many players were on the restraining line If you guys can explain to me what a restraining line is, I'll be very obliged.
I'm going to guess at a free kick wall.
What's that?
I'm going to guess at the wall for a free kick where they put the line down. That would be my... I have no idea.
It was actually the offside line.
Oh.
It was the line being held by 3 or 4 defenders, and that was referred to as the restraining line. So this is just a microcosm of what I have to go through the whole day. There's not enough drugs in the world to make me numb to audio for some reason. That's a gap in the market if I've ever known one.
Okay, just quickly before we get to some live questions, because I've got to talk to my 4 Australian friends who listen to this podcast, because there's so many of them. So, boys, just quickly, Australia play Peru, Denmark play France. Basically, if Australia need to beat Peru, France need to beat Denmark, and we look like going through to the next stage. If you're a betting man, and I know you're not, Tony, so you
nice one.
you put your would you put your money on Australia to go through?
I would put my money. I don't want to say, because people seem to think I'm some form of genius, and they're gonna and now want like tips from me, which I hate giving.
Yeah, sorry, we shouldn't have done that.
but a draw suits both teams in the France game. Let's put it that way.
Okay. Schwinn?
I'd put my money on Australia because, first of all, I don't know anything about betting. But I would imagine, considering what Tony just said about the France game, that the odds you would get on Australia would be great. And I feel that once a goal is scored in the France-Denmark game, things might open up, because I think they'd both be comfortable with a draw, but neither would want to draw points. So that could make things a bit more testy. And Peru's out of the tournament too, aren't they?
Yeah, well, they're gone.
A draw puts... If France and Denmark draw, France win the group and Denmark come second.
Right.
Whereas if either side goes for it, then, I mean, it's very unlikely France are going to go out, but they could come second, which they probably won't really want to do. The other flip side of it, though, is they could potentially come second to avoid Germany.
That's true. Yeah, that's true. Yeah. But Germany won't be playing till after that game, won't they?
Yeah, but I think I don't know. It depends on
Tony,
the result.
They're in the Croatia-Iceland group they'll play next. C, Group C. So Group C is France. Next group is D. So that's Croatia, Iceland, Nigeria, Argentina.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, it's Germany, Brazil. Yeah. So anyway, I think if France and Denmark, as I said, it puts France, if a draw, and they've done it before, they've done it against Switzerland, I think it was in Euro 2016, where they played out a bore draw because it just suited both teams. If Denmark can agree to a draw before the game, they'll take it, because it means it won't risk them losing and going out.
So if you're fans, would you rather face the group winner in Croatia in the next round or the runner-up in Argentina?
Well, I'd rather the runner.
I don't think it will be Argentina.
Well, let's assume for the sake of argument it is.
Why? Because it won't be.
There's still a shout, though, right? They're still within a shout, right?
Well, Croatia has said they're gonna rest their whole team, and if Iceland win, Argentina are out. So I see it as the slimmest of slim, because remember, it's not head to head; it's goal difference.
Right. Yeah.
So Argentina are now -3 as well. So it's not only that they have to win. Let's presume Iceland win, because Croatia ain't going to play any players, regardless of what happens in the game I'm watching now. If Argentina have to, as I said, they have to do at least, say Iceland win 1-0 against Croatia reserves, Argentina have to score 5.
Yeah, that's a...
Yeah, but if I'm France, I don't know if I'd like to be playing Iceland, you know?
Well, I mean, given that you'd prefer that to Croatia. Look, Croatia are going to come top. It's not guaranteed, because if Iceland win now and Iceland beat Croatia, but Croatia are the team to avoid from that group at the moment, and it looks like they're going to come top. So I think
France will have to go. France will have to go out. They'll have to go all for it for Denmark. So at least
they won't. A draw wins them the group.
A draw wins them the group.
And a draw guarantees Denmark second as well.
Yeah. Okay. Well, let's fucking hope they don't have some shitty gentleman's agreement for that. Okay, so because my only problem with Australia is I don't know where our goals are coming from. I have no idea.
I said that to you while I was watching against who did you draw with? Denmark. I thought Australia played very well. I could just never see him scoring. Leckie was excellent, but I mean, I just literally I couldn't see where a goal was going to come from, and it tells that both your goals so far have been penalties.
Yeah, they got Nobo playing up front. I don't know why. I have no idea why. Daniel Lozani, he's a young player. You've probably seen him come on. He probably could have come on earlier, mate. He won't play. He's in the A-League now for Man City. He won't be playing the A-League next season. I reckon he'll be heading to, and I said it earlier in the podcast, he'll be heading overseas somewhere. He'll be the next big thing that comes out of Australia because he is class. I think they've got to start him. I don't know what you do with Cahill. Cahill going into Peru game, do you start Cahill 20 minutes in, he nips a goal? He's not fit. He won't play the 90. But I don't know. I don't know what the answer is. I really don't. Old Bird, he's got a bit of an issue there, I think. Okay, boys, you want to talk to some people?
Let's go.
Let's go and get into it. So each and every week we have a couple of live listeners join us for a chat and ask us some questions. This week, once again, Vish, welcome to the podcast, mate. How are you?
Hey, liking you guys. Cheers.
Hey, good, mate. That's the way. You enjoying the World Cup, buddy?
Yeah. There's some good games, and VAR is finally doing his thing. Neymar diving like he's an Olympic gold medalist, but we're catching him out. Enjoying that.
Okay, you got a question for the boys, mate?
Yeah, my question is, I've asked this on the Gunith and the USA podcast as well. With us buying so many players, would it be detrimental to our performance? We've seen it with Liverpool and with Tottenham when they spent the Torres, the Suarez money and the Gareth Bale money. They bought a raft of players, but they was detrimental to their season. The players didn't gel, and the guys actually went backwards. We've even seen it with AC Milan this season, as well as Everton. So what do you...
Tony?
I think that the two main examples, the Premier League examples you've mentioned, the issue is they both lost their main player and everything that their team was built around, and they tried to spread the 30-odd goals and the 20 assists throughout the pitch, and it changed their whole identity. With us, I think and I hope we're supplementing what we've got. We're not going to change anything. Our style's not going to change. Well, not dramatically, obviously, with a new manager it will, but we're still going to be based around the same sort of players. I also don't think, look, a keeper's neither here nor there. That doesn't make too much difference to the team. None of us are really expecting Lichtsteiner to start. So at the moment, if we presume Socrates and Torreira are done, it's only really two additions, which was the same as last year with Kolasinac and Lacazette coming in. And with 2 or 3 is normal, I think. And I think into the actual first team starters, we're probably only going to have 2 or 3.
Schwinn, you got anything to add on that, mate?
Yeah, I'll have to agree. I think it's not how many signings you make. It's, for what roles and for what purpose you buy them. If you buy 4 players and you throw all of them into the starting 11, then there will obviously be a bedding-in period, and that will affect results. But I think the motivation behind most of our signings is, A, filling in some of the roles that have not been filled yet. For example, a backup right back. And consequently, competition. I think Leno will also face some competition from the likes of Petr Cech in one way or the other. And obviously, Hector Bellerin would have watched the Switzerland game and realized that the 34-year-old man is doing a fucking job on the likes of a Neymar, when Hector would have been screwed all over by the pace of Neymar and Marcelo and maybe even Coutinho on that side. So I think it serves as motivation in that case, and I think we're spreading our signings very well. And I don't see any opening to that sort of problem just because we don't need too many players who are going to come in and start for us.
And what's your thoughts on the answers there, Vish?
Well, yeah, that kind of puts me at ease over there, because I was it was a bit disconcerting if you looked at these other guys. But then we've also got we're looking at another central midfielder to fill in for Wilshere. Am I correct? Because they're looking at Golovin.
Yeah, I mean the rumours, the two heavy rumours are around Golovin and Eber Banega. One, I mean, Banega wouldn't be a starter if he came. Golovin, and we've got some other questions on him later. Golovin, I would expect to be. I rate him really highly. But we're going to be changing system. I'm pretty sure we're going to be playing a flat three in midfield. And I think more than incoming players, I think a change in system may take some bedding in. But that's more in the change of manager. Everything's going to be different now from what it was last year. So in terms of things gelling, if it doesn't gel, which is entirely possible, I don't think it'll be due to the names coming in. I think it'll be getting used to a new manager and his systems. And even if he keeps exactly the same system, his ways of working, we all know things are going to be a whole lot different from what they were under Wenger. For better or worse, we don't know yet. But I think a gelling issue will come more down to how they settle around the manager, not how they settle around the new players. Because you could have someone that comes in, I'm not going to put a name on it, but you could have someone comes in and he works perfectly for Emery's system. And he looks like the good one and everyone else looks bad. But that's just because he's gelled to the system quicker, not because the other players haven't gelled to him.
And just on that, Tony, you know, Aubameyang and Lacazette, they've only been with us the one season, so it's not like they're accustomed to a Wenger system as much as other players would be.
I mean, you're right, but I mean, and Aubameyang's only been 4 or 5 months, but we see what happens on a match day. You think they're training that to play in that model 4 or 5 days a week. So it's like your job. If you do your job every day for a year and someone changes it, you don't think, I've only been here a year. You think, fuck, I've spent a year learning this shit and now it's useless. So I think a year is still quite a long time. Like, I mean, I'm trying to think of a real life working example, but you know what I mean? When they changed everything to computers from fucking notepads or whatever you used to use, even if you'd only been doing that for a year, it still would have been like, holy fuck, I was used to writing everything down and now suddenly I've got this big monitor thing and I've got to learn how to use that. So I get what you're saying, but I don't think it will make too much difference.
Okay. Anything else, Vish?
No, that's it. Yeah, that's me done over there.
Okay, well, thanks for joining us, mate, and thanks for listening too, buddy.
Thanks, guys. Thanks for a great show.
Good on you, mate. See you, mate. Okay, well, that was great. And you can get us on live listeners at @clockend_talk on Twitter, and we'll share the link up there. And if you want to be like Vish and jump on the podcast and ask the boys a question, more than welcome to join us. We'll be doing that each and every week next season as well. Tony, we have a question from Jonas82. Would you rather our players do terribly, get knocked out in the World Cup stages and therefore get a chance to rest, or have a stunning run to win the trophy, their market values soar, and ultimately be outrageous, exhausted, and miss the first 2 weeks or so of the season?
I was thinking not about this specifically. I was thinking about earlier when players will come back. So typically teams will give them 4 weeks off. If they want to take that, it's up to them. So pretty much anyone that gets through the group stage will probably come back to training in the first week in August. And then that's if you go out in the last 16. And the first league game, I think, is the 11th or 12th of August. So they probably won't be ready for then anyway. That doesn't answer the question, but it was just something I was thinking about earlier. In answer to the question, I think it's a bit of a double-edged sword. Confidence is a big thing in football, and if someone's gone really far in the World Cup, yeah, they'll miss the 2 weeks, but they'll come back flying, hopefully. It can work on the flip side. I think Mertesacker said he was a bit... I don't know what the word is. He was a bit uninterested in football after they won the World Cup for a while because he'd reached the pinnacle. So that can be a double-edged sword. You want your players to do well. You want them to get used to winning things. It's always the biggest thing we accuse Tottenham players of, and it's right, that they don't know how to win things. For me, it's no surprise that we hadn't won a trophy for years, and when we bring Ozil in, not just that he's a very good player, but we win a trophy in the first year because the mentality is there to win things. I think is that 1 or 2 FA Cups, Czechs won now. I think one. You get the players. Obviously, we've had Mertesacker that's used to winning things. So I would prefer, especially with the players we've got. Look, I mean, Ozil's, you've got to say, is the only one that's probably got a chance of getting anywhere. So
them Germans,
I prefer him to run deep, to be honest, because especially if they go out, he's going to be blamed, as he always is, and that does nothing for confidence.
Yeah, no, I agree. Granite Xhaka, Switzerland, where are they? They're in third. No, I don't think they're going to get. Even if they get to the group, that'll be them in the 16, won't it? Pretty much. So Switzerland. Okay, Schwinn, how do you rate the young stars of the World Cup? Lorenzo. Oh, mate, I rate him fucking oath. I was the bloke who said that, Lorenzo. Nobody'd listen to me, though.
What about Lozano?
I can't believe that. Anyway, Golovin? Who's Golovin? Never heard of him.
Russia.
He scored against us in April.
He did too.
He did. He's been very, very good this season.
He's been very good for Russia, hasn't he? Yes.
Yeah, he's been fantastic. And when you look at their team, they don't have a lot of options up front. And they've managed to score some good goals and quite a few goals. And Cheryshev and Golovin have been the providers there. Look,
anyway, Jonas asked, would you take him at Arsenal, or are there any other young stars you'd take?
Yeah, I was just getting down to that. All these links, concerning Golovin with us are very positive to someone like me. And me and Tony were talking about this yesterday or day before, that a signing like that would not just make sense from a financial and a club perspective, but I think even someone like Emery could be persuaded to bring that player in and involve him in one way or the other. For other players, I don't know if there's anyone in particular who stood out. I mean, it's still early in the World Cup. A lot of teams haven't even played their second game yet. So I do want to heed caution on that for a second and maybe come back to this question a week or two from now, so that we have a little more time to analyze players. But we've seen a bit of Golovin since our Europa League games, and I'm fascinated by the kid, and I would I'm growing warmer to the idea of having him at the Arsenal.
I'm just going to touch quickly. I don't want that. What was it, Pavlon, whatever his name is?
Christian Pavlon, yeah, from Argentina.
Yeah, I didn't say much from him. I really didn't, boys.
Just to be fair, that's all of Argentina. If Messi was 20 years old, not a lot of people will be banging his drum right now. So, it might not be the player; it might just be the system.
Yeah, it could be. And Malcolm?
Malcolm, it seems, has agreed terms with Inter and will be moving there on a 5-year deal.
Yeah, I don't want Malcolm. He can go and get fucked too.
Yeah, apparently he rejected us, which...
Yeah, I know. That's what I was just about to say that.
Yeah, he had options from Valencia and from us as well. I don't know what the financial package was.
I'd like to know if he really had options from us.
Yeah, no, I would put that down to agents talk, because as we all know, Gramondi went to scout him, and it was reported a long time ago that Arsenal didn't think his mentality was up to what was required to be at Arsenal. And then suddenly, when he does go somewhere else, then suddenly, I rejected Arsenal. Look, there's no way they could offer the financial package we could, because there's no money in Italian football. So I think that's just his agent speaking. And it happens when we sign players as well. I can't remember the last time we signed someone and they didn't say, I rejected. Usually it's Man United, they say. But every time anyone signs someone, they rejected someone else.
Leno rejected Napoli, apparently.
Yeah, I rarely believe these things, because it's just a way to kind of endear you to the fans as well. I chose you over them. I'm such a big fan of X club, whoever it is. Look at me holding the scarf. I've always supported them.
See, to be honest, I don't care if he's not going to join us or not, but the fact that he said that, and it might not be true, but I want to believe it, because it shows that we're still hunting in the market for a pacey winger, which I thought we will not do, and we'll concentrate on deeper issues. I thought Lucas Perez is someone who will probably fit into that position as a makeshift for at least one season. So when I read that report, and I assumed it to be true, I thought that's a good sign that at least we're hunting for someone in that capacity. Now that you boys say this, I feel that okay, that might be true, that he was not speaking the truth, but that makes me kind of sad that we probably are not in the market then for a winger.
That Lorenzo, he plays left wing, so he'd be no good for us because we got Welbeck that does that.
And he's right-footed.
Welbeck's not a first-team player. He would
no,
be...
I know, but you know what I mean? Like, he's going to be on the bench and he's going to be in that position because he's not going to take over Aubameyang or Lacazette, is he?
No, but that's not what we want a winger for. We want a winger to be a winger. Look, Lozano is a young Alexis Sanchez. He's right-footed. He plays on the left. He's very sharp. He cuts in on his right foot more often than not. I'm not a huge fan, and as I said, I know a lot of people are. I'm not a huge fan, but I wouldn't say, because we've got Welbeck, we don't want him. I think we need a winger. I would prefer someone that goes around the outside than someone like Lozano who's going to cut in all the time. But if it came to that, he's a good player. As I said, I'm not as big a fan as most people are, but he's a good player, and if it came to it, I'd get behind him, but he definitely wouldn't be my first choice.
And Golovin, he plays...
He's a centre midfielder. I think Golovin excellent. He would be one I would actively be trying to sign. And this isn't based on the World Cup. I actually think, and I was talking to the Football Mole the other day about this, I think that Golovin's actually looked worse in the World Cup than his actual level because he's played too far forward. I don't know if you remember against Saudi Arabia, he started deep and then Alan Zagoyev pulled his hamstring and Golovin moved into a 10. But for me, he's better as a deeper centre midfielder. He can play as a 10, but he's better as a deeper centre midfielder. And for me, that's where his future lies on that. So I actually think everyone's been impressed with him, and I think he's been below his usual standard.
Yeah, okay. So I'm just thinking right wingers. Who's on that list?
No one really.
Ousmane Dembele.
Oh, Dembele. What happened there?
No one realistic.
Dembele's not realistic with a loan.
Nah.
Especially, I never thought it was anyway, but with Griezmann signing a new contract, it completely put it out the window.
Oh, okay. Okay, Dean Potter asks, talking about players, are we concerned about Ramsey, Tony, contract situations, considering he had no World Cup involvement? There's been no news in forthcoming about a new contract being agreed.
Yeah. Look, again, regular listeners will know I've been concerned since December. There was obviously the story about the agency, the agency issue's now been resolved, and still nothing. It's entirely possible that he's just on holiday. The players get given 6 to 8 weeks off, and they're entitled to use them. I think the only reason we've had so many negotiations with Jack is because his newest baby is a month old now, so a holiday probably wasn't possible. So he's been around. Otherwise, I expect the negotiations would have either been over a lot quicker or a hell of a lot longer than they would have been. He would have either got it sorted the day after the season finished, or not until 1st of July, probably. So it is entirely possible that Ramsey's just away. I would hope that Arsenal aren't so stupid to let Jack go if they think Ramsey's not going to sign. For me, it would just be moronic. And I'm not comparing them as a players, but to lose the two of them in the same window would be suicidal for me. So hopefully internally they've got some good news or some good feelings, and he is just on holiday. But the lack of news is worrying. I agree with the question.
Mm-hmm. Well, Paul Martin also asked any news on Ramsey contract, Tony. He's also goes on though about any winger outside Dembele or Martins. I forgot about him. I actually saw this question coming in, and I think the thing is with Martins, again, another one I'm not a big fan of, but I think everyone's going on about him because they think he will be free, which I still heavily dispute. For anyone that follows us on Twitter, they'll know that. If I said we're linked with Martins and it's going to cost us 40 million, I don't think I'd be surprised if anyone wanted it. So, for me, again, it's not another one I would want. Again, anyone that pulls on the Arsenal shirt, I'll get behind, but he would be nowhere near the top of my list. Yeah, okay. Hey, what did you describe him to me again? Was it a walk-up?
Better dribbling, less end product.
Yeah, that's right, yeah. Okay, Schwinn, Rocky asks, and he's wanting all of us to do this, so given the news about Xhaka and Jack, I don't know what the news is.
The
Jack
contract extension.
Of course, yeah. Fuck me, I've got a memory like a goldfish. Shag, marry or kill. So Rocky's gone Shaka, he'd shag. Fuck off.
Oh, I don't think he put them in order. I think he just listed the 3 players.
Okay, he's gone Shaka, Jack and Ozil. So I took it as shag, Shaka, marry Jack, kill Ozil.
Yeah.
Maybe I got it wrong.
I didn't feel that. I just saw it as they're the 3 players to choose between.
Okay, right. Yeah, maybe you're right then. Each of you must choose, please. Tony will explain if you are all confused.
Well, for me, Grant gets the axe. I definitely kill him when it comes to this one. I will shag Ozil, and I'll marry Jack. I don't think there's any doubt that Jack is the most loyal one out there. Not to say others aren't, but Jack obviously is the most. And who doesn't want a loyal partner in life?
And Schwinn will no longer be on the Clock and Talk podcast. We're taking positions as of today.
The fuck? I thought that was a respected answer. I thought that's what everyone was
kill Shaq. What? No, you threw in the fucking axe.
Well, fucking obviously, who else is going to get the axe when it comes to this list?
Schwinn, don't worry, he's going to be on the podcast on his own in the next week after I answer, so it's fine.
Well, if you still want that special guest to come on the podcast, Taz, then you might not want to fire me quite yet.
What the fuck you go? Okay, I'm going to shag Shaka, marry Jack. I'm going to kill Ozil with a shotgun.
Go fuck yourself.
I'm going to kill him with a shotgun and a fucking, then chop his head off with a fucking double-edged sword. How's that for you? Righto.
No comment.
Go, Tony.
So, I mean, look, marry Jack's it's obvious. I don't really need to go too much into that. The other two, on the fence.
No pressure.
I mean, first of all, the kill thing, just because of the death threats earlier in the season, I just want to change that to slightly main. But I would... It's a tough one, isn't it? No, Xhaka I would have to kill because he just doesn't possess...
Yes.
No, he doesn't possess the levels of... I rate Xhaka and everyone knows I do. But he doesn't produce the level of performance that Ozil does.
You don't get a room, you two.
Yes. Sorry, Taz. Majority wins. It's a democracy.
Yeah, actually, I didn't mean kill overboard. Probably, I didn't mean to go overboard with a kill, so... Yeah. Probably shouldn't have used that term, eh? Should have said stag, marry, and shoot. Yeah, I didn't think of death threats. I didn't mean that, boy. And yeah, none of us did.
Yeah,
really.
just shag, marry, kick in the bollocks. That's fine.
Yeah, that's a kick in the bollocks. Yeah, we'll kick Ozil in the bollocks. Useless prick.
I'm not going to say anything. We won. It's the losers who are making the noise.
Anyway, so it'll be just me on the podcast next week and looking for some more Shaka lovers. MAA Gunner has asked question.
That's useful in the question segment.
Yeah, I'm trying to work out how to pronounce half these fucking names. That's what it is. That's after Socrates, Socrates, Soya Unku. Is that right?
I sent you guys the actual pronunciation of this yesterday, didn't I?
What is that?
Did I send you guys a voice note of that last night?
Yeah, you did.
Oh, you did actually. I didn't listen to it though, so I should have done prep. Go on, what is it?
So it's Çağlar Söyüncü.
Say it again.
Çağlar Söyüncü.
Okay, righto.
It's a tongue twister, isn't it?
It is a tongue twister, yeah.
He has Caglar on the back of his shirt, and I'm English and ignorant, so I'm calling him Caglar.
Well, I was just going to go soya sauce.
So what's the actual question? Because
anyway, sorry. And Torreira, do you think our transfer activity will end unless something comes up, or do the club want to bring more players?
I would have said I think it would probably end, but we're still being heavily linked to at least one other centre midfielder in Banega and Golovin. So maybe they're looking for more. And I'm not sure if this is a question or I read it somewhere else, but our midfield options are actually quite light. And as I said, if you are like me and assume he's going to play a three in the middle, you've got Ramsey, El Neni, Xhaka, Torreira, and Maitland-Niles. That's quite light for a three-man midfield. It means pretty much one of them's going to be, or at least one of them's going to have to play every game. So, in addition to the midfield, if he is going to play that flat three, again, we don't know that. It's just what I'm assuming. But if he is going to play that, I do think we're at least one body light there.
Well, he goes on, Tony, and says, don't you think we're still... This is your next question. Don't you think we're still light in the midfield? Ramsey, Xhaka, El Neni and Torreira. Maitland-Niles isn't enough. If we have a league game every week, Europa League on Thursdays, also injuries. So
yeah, well, as I said, I've just, without reading that question, I've just pretty much agreed with it. And I think when we first started getting linked with all these centre midfielders, I thought, why? We've got enough. And then, as I said, I think we're going to play three in the middle. And it sort of made me think, well, then that five isn't enough because Maitland-Niles isn't someone that's going to be relied on week in, week out. So then you're essentially down to 4.5 for three positions.
But then we just let Jack go.
Yeah.
Seems crazy. And if Ramsey goes, well, fuck me.
Yeah, as I said, you've just got to hope Arsenal ain't stupid enough to let Jack go so easily if Ramsey's still in the balance.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, okay. We will see what happens, MAA Gunner. Thank you for your question. RC Zorro Bob, Schwinn, aside from potentially saying injury prone, what was Jack's greatest weakness? I'll ask you this question too, Tony. That held him back from achieving his full potential, or do you think that he has already reached his talent ceiling? Schwinn. He's fucked off. See, that's what happens when you start ripping Ozil off. Schwinn disappears and goes and sits back on his fucking fence.
Sorry, boys.
Tony?
I got a call from work. That was unexpected since I'm not supposed to be working anymore. But I missed the question, so I'll let Tony take this one.
That's fair me. I think Schwinn was half right earlier when I think we expected Jack's ceiling to be a hell of a lot higher due to that Barcelona game. That probably played a part. There was obviously injury issues. You can't deny that some missing 2 years of his career essentially hasn't hampered him. And I think a lot of the time we rated him on what we expected him to be. I mean, I've been at games or I've seen games where he's been a solid 7 out of 10, and that's okay for any player on the pitch. But especially because of that Barcelona night, what we expect from him is everyone goes, if he has a 7, it's like, oh, he was a bit quiet. So I remember when we beat Huddersfield, and obviously the whole day was about, Burnley. The whole day was about Wenger's last game and whatnot. But Jack showed in that when he beat Jack Cork for Kolasinac's goal, exactly what you expect from him, what you need from him. But again, people go, oh, yeah, 7 out of 10, didn't run the game. But you're not, I don't know if you expect someone in his position to run the game every week. So there is a lot of factors. I think the start of this season was probably the best consistent football he's played from us, apart from that first year. What happened after December, we don't know, but that was the time when the first contract was offered to him that he rejected. I don't know if that was playing on his mind, but I think if you look from, I think he played his first appearance in September. If you look from September till December, I think he was pretty much our best player every week.
Schwinn, a question has come in from @TJBear5. Who do you feel will suffer the most for Emery's new system, as I feel Ozil may suffer?
Ozil may suffer, there is no doubt. But I also think that given the situation that Emery will find himself in with regards to Ozil's extension and to his stature at the team, I wouldn't be surprised if Ozil continues to heavily feature and is a bit more rotated than usual, especially when it comes towards the end of the game, 70, 80 minutes. I can see Ozil being shipped out. But I think someone who will probably suffer the most is Mustafi, and I think he doesn't have the ball playing ability that we would require under Emery, and I would like to keep a close eye on Mustafi as the season kicks off and progresses. But I think Ozil is just too valuable to the team for him to be removed permanently. And for that reason, I think Mustafi will be the one who will suffer the most.
Okay. Tony, I know you... Back to the bias, Tony. Just ice, but Tony isn't biased, but he may be a bit biased when it comes to Jack. Is Jack the best ever academy product? If so, what does this say about our academy?
So I saw this come in, and luckily I did because I've had time to think about it. And he's not. My answer is very controversial. I think a lot of people...
You've shocked me. You've shocked me by saying he's not.
Well, I think a lot of people would say Tony Adams. Obviously, one club man, captain, blah, blah, blah. For me, no. For me, and this is where the controversy comes in, it's Ashley Cole. And I think it's Ashley Cole by a large distance.
Yeah.
He was well... I know what happened, and there's a lot of hatred, but he was the best in the world in his position for a long time. And I think in my lifetime, he's been the best left back. I'm not saying ever, the best left back since I've been alive. Some people would say Roberto Carlos. For me, Ashley Cole was in a different league because he could defend as well. Yeah. So for me, if you've got someone that's been even the best in the world at some point, he has to be the best person to come from the academy.
Yeah, I have to agree with that. Yeah, I would have thought Tony Adams, but no, I'm glad you mentioned Ashley Cole because I agree with that.
Even Cristiano said recently, I think, well, when I say recently, I would say in the last year or so, that Ashley Cole was the toughest defender he's been up against. And Cristiano's seen his fair share of world-class defenders, so that just...
Cristiano doesn't give credit if he doesn't need to either.
Yeah. Absolutely.
But, I mean, for me, and I understand why amongst Arsenal fans, because of hatred, Ashley Cole was so underrated, it's ridiculous. Because he's never mentioned in these things. And for me, as I said, he's been the best left back in my lifetime, in my opinion, by a long distance as well. I can't even think of anyone that comes close. As I said, most people may potentially say Carlos, but not for me. And then I can't think of anyone else that could even compares.
Okay. Red Fulcrum. Schwinn, we touched on it earlier. Thoughts on Leno? Do you think will directly become our main goalkeeper? I don't know if we mentioned that. Also, congratulations, Tony. Good win for the Three Lions. Will certain media leaving Sterling alone? So, Schwinn, just quickly, will he be number one? He'd have to be, wouldn't he?
I would imagine so, yes. Premier League games and whatnot, I would imagine he'll take the number one spot. Just quickly on the second half of the question, and I'll let Tony take it from there. There's a wonderful article on the Players Tribune that Raheem Sterling wrote called "It Was All a Dream." I'll tweet it out from the Clock and Talk account if someone's interested. But he writes about the Sun, and he writes about some of the things he's been facing in the tabloids recently. So that's going to be that should be a good read for people who are interested.
Okay, Tony, how's the media travelling over there, Sterling?
They've pretty much left him alone at the moment. Schwinn's right, that article is very good. When he says written by Sterling, I would say written very loosely, because it's definitely a ghostwriter. But it is very good. Look, the media just love to try and fuck up England. The big debate we've got at the moment is if they should have printed. So a coach was seen at an open training session with what looked like the team sheet for the Panama game. And the media have printed England team leaked, blah, blah, blah. And then in the press conference...
that's just right, no?
Yeah, 1-0 Nigeria. By the way, someone just scored. Ahmed Musa.
Spoiler, I'm still 2 minutes behind.
It's a decent one. But when... so they asked Southgate about it, and they asked another player, I can't remember who it was, Kyle Walker, and they said about the press leaking it, and he said, look, we've given you unparalleled access. The England camp's really open this time. Usually they're closed off and they're hiding in the woods somewhere. This time they've been all friendly with journalists. They've allowed them a load of access. They said, we've given you all you could want to do your job. At some point, you've got to decide if you're with us or against us. And then now there's a big debate with everyone in England in terms of people thinking, well, you're now at the team's detriment if you're releasing team news 4 days early and giving the opposition a heads up, essentially, while the journalists are trying to claim they're just doing their job. But, I don't know how much taking pictures of a confidential piece of paper and printing it is doing their jobs. I'm obviously on the side of there being arseholes. But that's the big debate in England at the moment with the press. It's not Sterling's probably due to that, because that's going on. Sterling's sort of taking a back seat for the moment.
Yeah, right. Clay asks, would love to hear all your thoughts on this. Will Ozil get the number 10 jersey for the upcoming season now? And what do you think? Who do you think will get the number 11 if he does? Keep up the good work, boys. Thanks, Clay. Schwinn?
It's too early to talk about the number 10 jersey. You know, it's not the right time. I mean, he'll probably get it. I mean, needless to say, maybe he won't. I don't care one way or the other. I do like serial jersey numbers, if that's the question, but I don't want to talk about, I mean, Jack's body isn't even cold yet. That's not fair, is it?
Yeah. What about you, Tony? Anything on that?
Well, all I would say on it is I think he would have got it anyway.
Yeah.
I think even if Jack did sign, I think Ozil would have got 10. I'd be very surprised if it wasn't written in his contract when he signed it that he gets 10. Because obviously he's all about his brand. He's gone quite big on the M10 or MO10 brand. So I think regardless of the Jack situation, I thought Ozil was pretty nailed on to get 10.
Okay, just quickly, Clay asked, and we'll just talk about the Brazil match where Neymar so-called dive. Excuse me. Oh man, that was so bad. Did he end up getting carded for that? The answer to that was no, he didn't get a card for that.
I think, I may be wrong, but I think you can't be booked on the evidence of VAR. So although they can turn over the decision, and interestingly, that's the first one that's been given and then ungiven by VAR. There's been loads that the ref hasn't given and then the VAR's given it, but that's the first one the other way around. But I'm pretty sure, and as I said, I might be wrong, but I'm pretty sure you can't be booked on the evidence of VAR.
Yeah, right, okay, wow. He should have got a card.
Going back to that, the Denmark player was the other day against you lot, but I think that was a ref mistake. I think the ref shouldn't have booked him because it's not allowed.
Was that the handball?
Yeah. So the ref went back and booked him after he'd looked at VAR and give the penalty. Yeah. But as I said, I think the ref made a mistake there.
Okay.
Just speaking just quickly, I know I mentioned last week that the officiating has been really good, but I think ever since it's sort of been not brilliant. And the one that comes to mind right away that is of major consequences, yesterday when Croatia were playing Iceland, Rebic should have been sent off, for that stomp he had. I forget who it was on the receiving end, but it was right next to the Argentina bench. And of course, Rebic went on to score the first goal of the game. So that obviously had a direct impact on how things transpired from there on out. I think some referees have had decent games, but ever since last Sunday, I think it's been a bit more suspect. So I thought it'd be only fair to mention, since we did appreciate them last week out.
The only one, obviously, Australia's been in two controversial ones, but Australia v France, I still stand by. I don't think it was a penalty. Australia v Denmark, I think that was a penalty. Now, call me biased, boys, but
there's a shock.
But it doesn't sound good, does it? So, yeah, I seen your poll you put out, Tony, and I thought, all these flogs, I seen 58% of them saying, no, it shouldn't be a penalty. I thought, fuck me.
I'm not saying it to wind you up. I don't think it was.
Yeah, okay. My mate, what's his name? He said it is. Cocaine sniffer, you call him? Mike Bosnich.
Yeah, well, it was they went to the studio at half time, and I can't remember. I know Martin O'Neill was one of them, and I think it was Slaven Bilic. It was two ex-managers, Ania Luko, who's a female player, and then they had Mark Clattenburg, who's obviously reffed the Champions League final 2 years ago, and they were split 2-2. Martin O'Neill said 1,000,000% never a penalty, and he was very strongly on it. And Clattenburg, the referee, the ex-ref, said it's not a penalty. But then the female player, and as I said, I think it was Slaven Bilic, but I may be wrong, said it was. Most polls I saw, they was all within sort of 50-something%, 40-something%. They're all
it was very close. It was a very close poll.
Yeah. All of them. That's not only ours. And I saw people with a big following, so that their polls get more results. And they had 10,000 people voting, and it was still 50-something.
Well, there you go. Okay. Okay, just quickly before we go, Group D, so we're watching Nigeria-Iceland. Boys, this is a really interesting group. Keep an eye on it because Nigeria win here. That leapfrogs them to Iceland into second place. So it's and Argentina are in that group. I've got to do the maths to see what Argentina have got to do. But Schwinn, you never know, mate. It's an interesting group. Okay, thank you for listening, thank you for downloading, and thank you for being a part of it.
Sorry, was there not a question? I just remember something coming in from Rudran. Was there not a question from him?
From who, mate?
Rudran. It might not have been on the questions, Freddie. It was basically just he was saying that it was talking about Jack, which obviously we've heavily spoken about. He was just saying that this is probably a time when emotion coming into play does make the best listening, whereas obviously we try to not let emotion come into it when we're talking about games. But was there any other way to speak about Jack without bringing emotion into it?
Schwinn?
Yes, and I mean, that's a long discussion though, isn't it? Because I think objectively, and when I say objectively, I'm obviously talking, perhaps with an edge of emotion. I think it was the right thing for Jack to move on in a lot of ways. And I'm speaking from his perspective, because if he wasn't going to get games here, and if that's the reason that he's missed out on making the World Cup, which is a stupid one because I think he's played the second most amount of games this past season than he has ever for us before. So that just tells you that there's a bit of hypocrisy going on there. But I think for his career progression, for his financial progression, we've spoken about that just because football players make a lot of money doesn't mean it's enough, because they have a high standard of living, they have people who they take care of, and all that comes with it. I think it was the right decision for him, and I think with hindsight he'll be able to come to terms with that. It's not going to be an easy transition when Arsenal is all he's known. Another point would be that he's been away at Bournemouth, so he's he's experienced that recently, where he's had to go in and sort of become a part of a team, so that's going to help him. But with Jack, you cannot take emotion out. You can try and be objective, in moments, but I think everywhere he goes, a lot of Arsenal fans will be watching him and be rooting for him, and that's the only way I would have it.
Yeah, I agree totally, Schwinn. A lot of Arsenal fans are. I'll always watch him. Doesn't matter where he goes. I seen links to Manchester United, and I thought, my heart sunk. I thought, no, please no. I don't know whether Jack would now go, I'll go to Manchester United if they pay me my money. I don't know. Tony says he wants to stay in London. Palace is an option, I suppose. But look, we'll always follow him. He'll always be a part of the Arsenal fan base, and I wish him well for the future. And how England left him out of that squad, though, is, well, we've discussed that. You're lacking creativity, I suppose, in the mids, and how you're going to get the ball to Kane. Well, I would have had Jack Wilshere on my bench, but that's not our decision. So, Tony.
Yeah, just when it comes to me, look, I agree that I think for him, especially with what Emery told him, that he's not going to be involved, it was the best move, and I think he probably made the right decision for himself. I do worry for him that if he goes anywhere but West Ham, I think his career is going to struggle, just because he needs that extra edge, and all his family are West Ham, and truth be known, he was a West Ham fan, but he obviously joined us at 7, and you kind of get taken over by the club you're surrounded by. So I think if he goes to West Ham, which is a possibility, he keeps that edge, he keeps that drive. Whereas if he goes anywhere else, and I think we saw it at Bournemouth, he didn't have that same edge about him, and I would worry for him if he goes anywhere else. In terms of with emotion, as I said, I think he made the best move for him. But what really disappointed me the other day is you've got someone that wants to be at the club so badly. And I said this to Schwinn at the time, and I don't know if many people know the story, but only once in my life have I ever been truly disgusted with Arsenal, and it's when I found out the story about how David Rocastle left. And obviously when I found it out, he'd already died. It was years after. So that adds more emotion to it. But when Rocastle left, he didn't want to go, and they pretty much forced him out, and he was sitting in the car park crying, saying, I don't want to go. And they basically gave him no choice. That's how the story goes. And for me, there's rumours that when Jack was in the meeting, that he was in tears because he didn't want to go but saw no other option. And for me, I think as a fan base and as a club, we preach loyalty so often, but we're the least, not as fans, but as a club, we're the least loyal people ever. Like, we want loyalty when it suits us. And I'm not saying this disgusted me as far as the Rocastle did, but it felt so similar. Like, how can we preach loyalty and we moan at Adebayor, we moan at Van Persie, we moan at Nasri, we moan at everyone. But then suddenly when what I would class as one of our own, and I hate the saying, wants to be loyal, we're like, oh, actually, no, mate, we don't want you here. For me, as I said, it didn't get me to get disgusted with Arsenal, but it left me very disappointed.
Yeah, it leaves a bad taste in the mouth, doesn't it?
That's
still to this day, I watched the Rocastle documentary, and every single time, even though I've seen it and I know what's going to happen, if I watch it again now, I'll come out of it, and for 10 minutes I'll be like, you know what, fuck Arsenal. And then, obviously, I wake up.
Yeah.
That's
So what was
true,
that?
you know?
So what was that? What's a documentary that people can watch, Tone?
It's called From Brackley to the Big Time, I think, and it's about Ian Wright and David Rocastle because they're from the same area.
Just on YouTube or something, is it?
It was a TV. It's like an hour long. It was on TV. It'll be on something. Let me see. I've got it saved on my Skybox, so I'll find the exact title.
Right.
I told Schwinn to watch it the other day. It's called Rocky and Righty, From Brockley to the Big Time.
Okay. Righto. Anything else, boys?
I'll just quickly say that, we, as Arsenal fans, we'll always love Arsenal. We might not like it every now and then, but we'll always love Arsenal. And unfortunately, it feels like the club have taken fans and their sentiments for granted when it comes to these things. I mean, the emotion of Jack's departure is fresh, and that might be the reason we're talking about some of these things. But 5 months down the line, a year down the line, the facts are not going to change. What we did with Rocky is not going to change. And just to Tony's point, that we preach all of these values and these beliefs, and when push comes to shove, and when it's time for application, we don't take that into account, and it serves us right, when some players leave us, and we moan for a lot of things, but it's very disheartening to hear all these things happen and to see them in the flesh.
I know, just to butt in, I know we've got a lot of listeners that are going to be listening to this now saying you can't pick a football team on sentiment, you can't keep him there just because he supports the club and whatnot. Fair enough, I understand that. But as a fan base, if we're going to take that point of view, when the next player, and it will happen again, leaves us for money or for titles or for whatever elsewhere, we can't say a word. We don't have a leg to stand on. And I think when I first watched that Rocastle documentary, that was when I stopped caring about players leaving, because I thought if the club don't show it, why should the players? And as I said earlier in the podcast, Jack going hurt me more than any other player leaving, and it is because it is because of this situation. He tried to show loyalty that we always preach, whereas the other players who didn't, you can half understand it. I think watching, if anyone's got the time to watch that documentary, it does put things in a different light.
Yeah, no, I agree. I'm just going to ask you, just before we wrap things up, boys, the whole Arsenal, the way they broke the news, I thought it was almost comical, disgusting. It was fucking woeful. So you've announced Leno with a couple of videos, and look at me, and then 3 hours later, goodbye, Jack.
Well, I think Schwinn obviously touched on it earlier, but I think their hands were forced on both, because Leverkusen announced Leno. So I think personally Arsenal were going to wait till the next day and probably let us get a bit down about Jack and then try and pick us back up with Leno. But
that's what I would have done. Yeah.
Okay. I think Leverkusen paid to them plans, but then also, I mean, look, it may be nothing, but Jack announced it, not Arsenal initially, and then Arsenal reacted, and Arsenal were still tweeting at like 1-2 a.m. UK time about it. So I don't know if Jack caught them a bit off guard by announcing it when he did. And then they had to start dealing with it, because it's very unusual for a club account to be tweeting at that time in the morning. So I don't know if Jack done it off his own back, and then they thought, shit, we better react to this and start, because everyone knows he's a fan's favourite, so they had to pay him the respect he deserves, so to speak. So then they came in and started throwing a load of detail together about it. But I wouldn't be surprised if both of them decisions were not in Arsenal's hands. I mean, Leno definitely wasn't. But I wouldn't be surprised if Jack sort of got them a bit off guard. I wouldn't be surprised if it was arranged. I think it's probably arranged with Jack to be announced that day. And then when they got pushed forward with the Leno thing, they probably said, Jack, like, can you give it a bit of space? And he's probably thought, no, fuck you, basically. That's what I'd imagine's happened. I have absolutely no information. I don't know. But that's what I imagine.
Mate, and it adds up that you say that now, because it was just, it wasn't dealt with right, I don't think. It was terrible. So, okay, boys. Look, thanks for chatting again. Look, and thank you, everybody, for listening. We will be back hopefully next week when Australia are through to the group stages, and then we can talk Socceroos.
Back in Byron Bay.
We can talk about Byron Bay. How do you know where Byron Bay is?
In between us.
Have you? And we can talk about Schwinn's Germany, whether they're going to be in or out. Anyway, thank you for listening. Thank you for downloading. And you can follow us at clockend_talk. Also, don't forget to jump on the Skype and add us there for a chat on the podcast. Thank you.